What's going on, everyone? So I know we don't like to talk about the dark ages in which Russell Westbrook was the Los Angeles Laker. I know that was, a year and a half ago, and it feels like it was a lifetime ago, right? It was quite the times. But it's very important for the context of this video because Russell Westbrook, we ultimately kind of sold the farm to go get. It didn't work out. And then we were able to get a nice package in return, at least at the time it was perceived that way, of Jarred Vanderbilt, D'Angelo Russell, and Malik Beasley. Now, there was a package before that was already done, signed, sealed, ready to be delivered, and that was the Buddy Hield and Myles Turner trade. Yes, we were done. It was a done deal. It was Russell Westbrook, 2027 first, and the 2029 first round pick for Buddy Hield and Myles Turner. And you might ask, for those that don't know and aren't familiar with what happened, why didn't this happen if it was already done? It's because Jeanie Buss actually vetoed it. Jeanie Buss said no, hard pass, and later on, fast forward, we ended up doing the deal for Malik Beasley, D'Angelo Russell, and Jarred Vanderbilt. Now, there's a couple things to that. One, at the time, it was like you just got a new coach. They wanted to kind of see how did it look, and they didn't want to have to give up all of their draft picks, which they were able to do the Utah deal for a protected first rather than two unprotected first, basically all their assets to go get Buddy Hield and Myles Turner. The hope was that maybe Darvin Ham could come in and make the Russell Westbrook situation work, which ultimately weren't able to, and then at the trade deadline, we were able to pull it off. And look, Buddy Hield and Myles Turner, they were advocating for it. Myles Turner's in interviews talking about hey, if I was the Lakers, I would do it. I would get it done. And then there was also that speculation of Myles Turner walking. Indiana kind of felt like maybe it's time to move on from him. And, ultimately, once everything fell through and they realized, Lakers aren't going to trade for me, he ended up signing that new extension. And it worked out great for Indiana, right? They're in the conference finals now. So it was a home run. It's one of those things where it's if you would have made that deal, where would you be for the Indiana Pacers? And then from the Lakers side of things, it's if you did do that deal, where would you be? Right? Because one, yes, the Lakers were able to get to the conference finals, and D'Angelo Russell, Jarred Vanderbilt in particular, those two guys were huge in the reason we got there. But once we got to Denver, that's when things kind of fell off the rails, right? Malik Beasley was essentially unplayable and just he basically was a no-show pretty much the moment we traded for him. D'Angelo Russell, he was really good in the regular season. He was good in the first two series, and then that Denver series just got completely just played off the floor. Same thing with Jarred Vanderbilt. So question kind of remains of what does that series look like if we had Buddy Hield and Myles Turner, right? If Buddy Hield could be the guy that we wanted Malik Beasley to be, and then had Myles Turner, who could have matched up against Jokic, and then Anthony Davis play the four, and then you could have had that big man pairing. Again, Lakers got swept, but you got to imagine, Buddy Hield and Myles Turner probably give you more production than anyone else that we had at that time. And that series was so close. Each game was incredibly close that, it's not that far-fetched to think that maybe the Lakers pull that off. Maybe the Lakers pull that out, or at least, maybe force a game 7 or something like that. Or, at least it's a more competitive series. And then you go into this season, and again, what does it look like? From the Pacers side of things, they lucked out, right? They're probably thinking they're lucky stars that Jeanie Buss vetoed this trade. Now, Buddy Hield eventually ended up getting traded and went to the Sixers, and he actually had a huge game in the playoffs for them. Right? Imagine if he was doing that for the Lakers this year. Who knows what that looks like? But Buddy Hield was also kind of that guy that always just felt like he was going to be a Laker. Right? They had the deal done before we got Russell Westbrook. They had a deal done. Again, signed, sealed, delivered, Rob Pelinka did, for Buddy Hield in Sacramento. And then Jeanie, again, because LeBron James and Anthony Davis wanted to go get Russell Westbrook, said, hey, don't do that. Go get Russell Westbrook. Man, it's one of those things that was what could have been. And the reason I'm even bringing this back up and having this discussion is because, again, Indiana, you see them in the conference finals, right? And you see what Myles Turner was doing in these games and how he was stepping up in big moments, and he was doing it all in many ways for the Indiana Pacers. And it's just man, what would that have looked like? What would it look like with Anthony Davis and Myles Turner, that defensive pairing down low, that ability for both guys to kind of stretch the floor, it would have been fun and a really dynamic situation, in my opinion, right? You would have had the two big motto. Now, there is questions about LeBron James at the three, right? Like, how does LeBron look playing the three? And, obviously, if you ended up doing that deal, you wouldn't have Jared Vanderbilt. You wouldn't have D'Angelo Russell, which I know many people are probably okay with the D'Lo signing. Now, you would have still very likely had many of the other pieces. Like, you still would have had very likely Rui Hachimura, because you still could have done that deal. But there is also the thought process of, like, maybe the Lakers approach everything different, right? So, like, for example, like, let's say that they did the deal in the offseason like they were originally supposed to do. Not this past offseason. I'm talking about the previous year, right? So, let's say that they did pull off the Buddy Hield and Myles Turner trade. Now, you got to imagine that the Lakers approach the trade deadline and approach various other things incredibly different. Now, again, they wouldn't have had their first round picks to trade, but they traded, 4 seconds for Rui Hachimura? And him being kind of that big-bodied four, it's very possible that they don't even go look to go get Rui. Now, again, they still could have pulled off the Rui Hachimura trade. That's something that definitely could have happened. But do they still look at Rui, or do they maybe go and get a D'Angelo Russell still? Or do they go get some other piece, some other player, right? Like, maybe they go get like a two guard or something, maybe maybe the roster could look completely different too. And in the offseason, that season going into it, if you would have had Buddy Hield, Myles Turner, Anthony Davis, and LeBron James, then they probably structure their roster very different also. Right? Like, even like the Patrick Beverleys and all that stuff. They ended up trading Pat Bev for Mo Bamba. They probably don't do that. So, I mean, everything across the board is entirely different. I mean, so we might have potentially, because we would have beaten Miami, right? If we would have gotten through Denver, we would have beaten Miami. So it's very possible that if the Lakers did that trade, they're the defending champions this year, and maybe they're still in the playoffs, right? And because, again, the roster would have looked completely different. You would have had more size. Any type of moves or trades would have been kind of to fit around those four guys. You still very likely would have had plenty of, because, again, you were trading Russell Westbrook for these two guys. So you still would have had Austin Reeves. Like, your starting five could have been like Reeves. I don't know if I could see Darvin Ham going Reeves, Buddy. Kind of feels like Buddy might have been better coming off the bench. But you could also make the argument, does Reeves' emergence ever happen? Right? Like, there's just so many dominoes that you can look at and point to and go, man, like, does this happen? Does that happen? If that deal gets done. And from both sides, not just, again, from the Lakers side, from the Indiana Pacers side. Because Indiana's roster looks completely different. Because Indiana, do they go and trade for Pascal Siakam still? Like, do they still do that signing of Bruce Brown? Right? Like, because look, if they traded Buddy Hield to Myles Turner, they're reshaping and kind of retooling that roster entirely. The idea was that we were probably going to lose Myles Turner for nothing. Let's get something back, and then we can maybe make a push later on down the road, free up a bunch of cap space, and we're in good shape, right? So that was kind of the vision and the goal. But to me, it's more so of like, what would these two look like on the defensive side down low? Right, having Myles Turner and Anthony Davis both in their ability to block shots. Because Myles Turner wanted to play the 5. Like, that was the big thing. Like, AD doesn't really want to play the 5. He has to play the 5 because of LeBron. Right? And so it's like, man, like, you would have gotten a guy that actually does want to play the 5, that can play the 5, that can block shots, defend, hit the outside shot, spread and stretch the floor. Like, it would have been the ideal situation. Then you would have gotten that legit shooter alongside LeBron and Anthony Davis. Just, it's still, like, it was the trade that I was advocating for heavily. I really wanted, and unfortunately didn't get it done. And now you're kind of in this position to where it's like the influx of, like, what do we do now, right? Like, you got Anthony Davis, you got LeBron James. It's like, do you go and make a trade for, an Allen or a Clint Capella? Or, do you kind of just go and are able to convince a Valanciunas or an Andre Drummond to come to the Lakers. Right? Like now you're kind of reshaping, retooling. And D'Lo, it's like, okay, well, is D'Lo going to stay? Is he going to go? Now you're looking, do you trade Austin Reeves and all these guys? And look, if Austin Reeves had his emergence, right, then you still could go get a lot of these pieces, right? The Lakers could have Buddy Hield, Myles Turner, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis, and then still have Austin Reeves and multiple of these other guys that they could now go use to potentially land, like let's say they get a DeJounte Murray, right? And now you have like a DeJounte Murray, Buddy Hield, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Myles Turner, right? Like Trae Young, I still wouldn't want. Or what if they were able to go pull off the big fish? Well, I guess they wouldn't be able to go get like a Donovan Mitchell because, all your money would be tied into those guys. You wouldn't have like the Rui, but you'd still have like Gabe Vincent, right? Like, I don't know. It's just be very interesting, right? And again, it depends on what they trade for instead of Rui. If they don't, or maybe they do still trade for Rui and they look at him as a valuable piece off the bench. And then maybe you're still in the same position with those contracts and go get a Donovan Mitchell. Imagine if you were able to go get Donovan Mitchell this offseason, have like Donovan Mitchell, Buddy Hield, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Myles Turner. I mean, talk about good luck beating that team. I don't know. It was one of those things. Watching Indiana today finish and get it done, I was just like, oh, man, what could have been? What could have been? But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What were your thoughts? What are your opinions? Are you disappointed? Is there anything that you feel like? Again, I feel whatever your thoughts are. I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.